Sorry about that, folks. Had a little bit of a technical glitch here. I recently did some updates and some equipment changes, and I accidentally forgot to switch on a setting, which meant I had no sound. So, I'm going to kick back for just a second and run my titles again because I can. Hang on a second, folks. And now we're back. Now, welcome to another episode of Treknicity Live. Take two. Given I just ran my spiel, I'll do it again. Why not? This is the show where I talk about pretty much anything to do with Star Trek. I give you my opinions, and I give you my thoughts, and so on and so forth. Wow. So, anyways, on this show, basically no topic is taboo, and I am your host, Lars Scenza, coming to you from somewhere beyond the cosmos, or somewhere in Southern California. At this point, I can't be sure. They're one and the same. In this episode, we're going to talk about Star Trek Enterprise. Yay! Actually, Star Trek Enterprise, was actually it was the first Star Trek series I was actually very excited to hear about when it came down to them announcing that there's going to be a new Star Trek series after so long, because we had seen Voyager end and we didn't have anything in between, and then of course we were kind of butting up against we're rolling the movies, but anyways, so Star Trek Enterprise came out in 2001, starred Scott Bakula as Captain Jonathan Archer. It is a prequel to the original series. Takes place about 100 years or so before Captain Kirk's time. And it features the first, or what they called the NX class, which was the experimental Warp 5 engine machine, the ship. We got to meet the Vulcans and see how things had progressed from First Contact through to where they were now. It went to show that there was still a lot of animosity, a lot of anger towards the Vulcans, because the Vulcans basically had this idea that, hey, whoa, you got to learn to crawl before you walk, and you got to walk before you run. So it kind of slowed up humanity's progress getting towards the stars, because they breached the warp barrier. We saw that happen with Zephyr Cochrane and a little bit of help from the Enterprise E crew back in Star Trek First Contact. So we, pretty much wanted to see what happened from there. It was kind of cool because, Vulcans always have been the trusted confidant of the of Earth in the Federation. They were always basically the conscience, if you like, the speed breaker even a little bit. And we got to see Gary Graham play one of my favorite Vulcans by the name of Ambassador Saval. And he was really, really anti-Earth, basically waiting out there into the deep ocean of deep space. And there's this sort of this back and forth, this very smug attitude towards humanity, that they're not ready, that the series starts off with us seeing a Klingon crash land on Earth, pursued by some enemies. They turn around and they end up getting killed. He ends up getting knocked out and severely injured. The Klingons are like telling the Vulcans, hey man, get our guy back home, just get his body back home. Earth is like, hey man, he's not dead yet, we'll just take him home, he'll heal up, he'll go home. So there was immediately, like from day one, there was this argument, this fight, this struggle between Vulcan trying to keep Earth a little bit on a tight chain, and Earth chomping at the bit. Starfleet is ready to go. They've been going for 100 years at this point, and they're like, yeah, we got to go. It's time to get out there and do this. We want to go see what's out there. So eventually they struck a deal. They put a Vulcan science officer on Enterprise. That was it was a deal. It was a deal that struck so that Vulcan, Vulcan would give them the star charts to get to Kronos, which is the Klingon homeworld. The Vulcan science officer is T'Pol, played by Jolene Blalock. no doubting at whatsoever that these, they basically put her in as eye candy. I mean, they did the same thing with, with Jerry Ryan and Voyager, and with Seven of Nine. I'm sorry. Look, you don't put a woman with that kind of physique into a show like this because it's scientific or it's really that interesting. I mean, don't get me wrong, they really developed the characters very well in the series. So, but initially they were going for the sex appeal. So they put the Vulcan on the ship. They kind of go towards tracking this place down, or tracking down the getting the guy back home. The Klingon's name is Klang. They try to get him back to Kronos. There's a temporal war thing going on, temporal Cold War, sorry. And yeah, I mean, I could talk endlessly about the opening of the opening episode, the Broken Bow parts 1 and 2 of this series. Actually, one of my favorites. I like to watch them every once in a while, just for the good old fashioned fun. Watch the excitement. You start seeing them really address some of the things that we already had grown accustomed to in watching the original series and TNG and DS9 and Voyager. We just basically took that it was the Federation, and they had phasers and they had big ships and photon torpedoes. Well, this is before all that. The Federation doesn't exist. It's just Starfleet and the Vulcans helping them out. So we get to see Earth deal with the likes of Andorians and Tellarites and Orions and a new species that was introduced into Enterprise called the Suliban. The first season's always rough for a series. I mean, very rarely do they get it really right out of the gate, but they didn't do a terrible job. It was just finding its feet. Some good stories, some, kind of filling some details a little bit, giving us a little bit of a different look at how everything sort of moved towards what we know with the original series. Then they sort of, into season 2, they started, okay, now we got our feet. Let's start fleshing out some stories. They start doing a little bit more of the backstories on the characters. You have Ensign Travis Mayweather, who is the navigator. You have Charles Tucker, who is, he goes by his Charles Tucker III, so they call him Trip, played by Connor Trinneer. You had Dr. Phlox, played by John Billingsley. Just all. And then you have Sandra Park playing Hoshi Sato, the communications officer who's basically a polyglot. So you like I said, season 2 starts to flesh out these stories a little bit more, get them going. Sort of tell a little bit. They sort of have those action stories. They start showing a little bit more of the struggle between Vulcans and humans, and why there's that feeling, and how they handle things, and how the Vulcans basically have this snooty, nose up in the air attitude toward Earth and humanity in general. Basically call them, savage carnivores, is how T'Pol, sorry, not savage, my apologies, impulsive carnivores. How T'Pol referred to humanity in Broken Bow Part 1. Season 3, like at the end of Season 2, I'm going to basically, if you haven't watched Enterprise, well, it's been out for a long time. So this is all going to be full of spoilers. At the end of Season 2, they opened up a story arc where this alien probe, comes out of this temporal warp hole, like a wormhole, and it stops at Earth, basically attacks Earth, cuts a swath all the way from Georgia, Florida, all the way into the Gulf of Mexico, into the Caribbean Sea, and I think even through parts of Cuba, like just cuts it like right in half. So of course, everybody comes racing home to deal with this. We find out that the probe was sent to basically give Earth a message that your time is up. We're coming for you, and that was from a race known as the Xindi. The Xindi in their form in the series we had never seen before. I think the Xindi actually make an appearance way back in the old Starfleet Battles game, board game, way back in the day, if memory serves me correctly. I think there's some other appearances of that name as well in other Star Trek series or novelizations and things like that. But anyways, so we basically get told, Earth is gonna beef up the defenses of Enterprise, and they're gonna go off chasing after these Indies, find out these guys are, and stop them from doing whatever they're doing, because they find out that at some point they're in the middle of building this super weapon, which is gonna be big enough to destroy Earth. So of course they bugger off, and they beef up the ship. They take off looking for the Xindi. They spend all of the third season ramping up this thing. Third season, not gonna lie to you, worst of the 4. In fact, actually, it was probably what killed the series and made sure that it only had a 4th, because by the time they brought the 4th season in, the damage was done. There was no way they were going to be able to do this. They were going to be able to keep it going, much like the original series, which only lasted 3 seasons. The third season of Enterprise was very much a death knell. With the series, though, they do wrap up everything with the Xindi at the end of the third season. They kind of roll a little bit over into the 4th season, because you have like a cliffhanger. You bring in the 4th season. 4th season, really good. I mean, fantastic. They actually got rid of some of the writers, and they brought in a couple of Trek's most prolific writers, Judith and Garfield Reeves-Stevens, who are authors of some of Trek's most absolute prolific novels. My favorite that they wrote was Prime Directive. I actually liked that book so much that not only do I actually have the hardbound book, I bought the book on audio, Audible. It was an audiobook, yeah. And they wrote some stories. They started to flesh out some things that we really wanted to find out about, because in the original series, Klingons basically looked like Puerto Ricans in gold lame, and yeah. But so there was no real explanation as to why they changed so dramatically in Star Trek: The Motion Picture when we see the Klingons encountering V'ger, and we see that, hang on, what's with these guys with the cranial ridges and stuff? Those aren't Klingons. But they do a really good job of bridging that, of bringing that story together, and kind of giving us a retcon as to why they look the way they do in the original series, which ultimately has to do with some tinkering with genetics and DNA from the Earth augments from the eugenics wars, which featured Khan, Nooney, and Singh. Basically mutated into a virus. It basically melts their cranial ridge, and they all look like basically Puerto Ricans in gold lame at that point. Of course, they end up curing that disease with the help of Dr. Phlox later in the season. But we got to see some really cool stuff. Like, we find out that the Vulcans basically had been, in a way, kind of corrupted. So you see that they bring in a good story where they bring in the Katra of Surak, who was the Vulcan from ancient times, who talked about pure logic, and practicing pure logic, because Vulcans in their primeval times, and they were very warlike, very chaotic. They basically nuked themselves almost into oblivion. A bunch of Vulcans basically said, "We don't want this logic crap." They uplift, take off. They became the Romulans. But again, they flesh out these stories that really were only just touched on a little bit. Did a really, really good job of telling us how this stuff came about. So again, we have the Vulcans, we have the Klingons and how they look different. We have a couple story episodes about the augments going back for the eugenics wars. We see some stuff with the Earthers, if you like, the people who believe that aliens did nothing but bring trouble to Earth, and they want them all gone, and they just want Earth for for humans, and that's it, and they don't want anybody going outside of Earth's solar system. So, and that actually featured, as my friend Patrick calls him, Admiral RoboCop, and is Peter Weller, and that was a really good series, or a really good story arc. The thing is, what's really sad is that, again, as I said before, the third season did the damage badly. So UPN, which was the station, the network that was airing Enterprise at the time, just wasn't gonna carry them on past a fourth. So they canceled them after fourth season. We begged them as fans for a fifth season, and they just nope, they're done. They're done. Where it's gone. And it's kind of, again, it's really sad, because I think that if Judith and Garfield Reeve-Stevens had stayed on as writers, we would have seen in a fifth season, we would have seen the breakout of the Romulan War, which would have been really awesome. And yeah, I think they could have done so much with it, but they didn't, and all we have are the rerun episodes. However, I still enjoy it. I like watching Enterprise. It's probably one of my favorite seasons or series to actually go back and watch. That between that and TNG, I very much like watching them over and over. I mean, even as just background noise, I can watch them. I can sit down at any point. I can walk in the middle of an episode and watch it all the way through, just because I love it. So the thing is that it goes to show that look, they don't get it right every time. I think they should have given Enterprise another season just to see if they could get that viewership back, but they didn't. They chose not to. And years later, we got the Kelvin timeline reboot movies, and then we got Star Trek Discovery, which again I'm very much loving at the moment. So you get you give a little, you get a little. It's kind of a it happened. But we still get to, at least it happened. We can sit there and watch them. We can go over them, and they're part of Star Trek history. So, with that being said, look, I love the series. I encourage you to watch it. Watch the first season, watch the second season. It's no real big deal, honestly, if you skip the third season and go straight to the fourth. But if you want to plow through it. There are some nuggets in season 3 that are decent, especially Carpenter Street, which was one of my favorite episodes, where we have a little bit of time travel involved. So that, but again, I leave it up to you to watch and judge yourself. It's a great series. It will stand the test of time. It already is. I mean, it's been off the air for over 10 years now, and it's still fresh in my mind. I know my friends watch it. Some of my friends watch it anyways. And, yeah. So that being said, I'm going to wrap up this episode with just the thought that, look, Scott Bakula did a really good job. I mean, I loved him in Quantum Leap. And so then I absolutely loved him as Archer in Enterprise. Very, very good portrayal of a Starfleet captain. Very much in the spirit of James T. Kirk. Being that, I'm in command, this is my ship, I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to take the risks. So, again, if you get a chance to watch it, that's cool. If you happen to like watching these episodes of Treknicity, Treknicity Live, and things that Red Shirt Geeks do, just like Dragons of Adrian, a Campaign Diary Season 1, just wrapped up today here on the Red Shirt Geeks channel. If you like it, please let us know. Drop a comment. Hit like. Hit subscribe. Get the little notification icon so you know that when we upload a video or we go live. I will be back with you twice more this week on Wednesday and Friday. I will be talking about Star Trek Discovery in Wednesday's episode. And I'm not quite sure where I'm going to go with Friday. Although I'm thinking I might talk about the short treks that are coming out with from CBS All Access regarding the little short episodes of Discovery stories that are coming out. So that's all for me, folks. Again, my name is Lars de Scenza, and as always here on Treknicity, rock out with your Spock out. See ya, folks.